So the league folds, and now it's the end of your professional basketball career, and you now take on a new challenge in life, becoming a sports broadcaster. Why sports broadcasting?
I took some classes at UCLA, and again, I was very introverted, very shy. My last couple years at UCLA, another student convinced me to come take this class. It's a great class. It's called sports broadcasting, which back in the 70s, now today you have communications, you have this, you have that, with sports and broadcasting, journalism and so forth. And as you well know, in the 60s and 70s, those things really didn't exist, or they were just starting, and only certain schools really carried a major in some of that. So this professor, Art Friedman, and I just hit it off. I mean, he helped kind of change my thoughts about maybe doing broadcasting. What really helped was great. Sugar Ray Robinson had a foundation, was really involved in the LA school districts, and so we would go out, our class would go out, and Art Friedman had a great relationship with him, and go to these schools and interview kids, which was great because as a college kid, we're terrible interviewers anyways, but it taught us how to interview a child at 7 years old and said, do you like the color blue? Yes. And then what do you do?
Yes.
Which unfortunately today some of the athletes still don't know how to elaborate, and it's unfortunate, but that the media forces these kids to be in a position they're not comfortable with. But that really helped me understand and be a little bit more open, and maybe it's something that I would get into. Also, Tom Harmon, who was a great football player in Michigan. And he was a broadcaster out here for the Oakland Raiders, and his son Mark Harmon was at UCLA, and Tom kind of took me under his wing and said, why don't you try this? There's not a lot of women in this, and I think it was Jane Kennedy and Phyllis George. Phyllis George was the first woman that NBC brought in and with football, but there were no women doing broadcasting. So Tom kind of took me under his arm, and Art Friedman, and in this class, and then when my brother Mark was my attorney for the contract with the Pacers, and he put in the contract that if I didn't make it as a player that I would do broadcasting. So again, another door opens up, and then I meet Don down at the Bahamas, and he convinces me to go to Don Martin School of Broadcasting up in LA. And so now it's just kind of things that are just kind of fallen into place, and had to hustle for jobs. I mean, make tapes and send them out and get doors closed in my face and say, no, you're not good enough, or no, we're not going to hire a woman, or no, you're not pretty enough, or no, you don't have the right look. And got a break at the University of Hawaii. KGMB asked me to be their analyst for their men's games, and that really helped. And then CBS, and did the men's first round, second round of the NCAA tournament, and then when the WNBA happened, NBC had me do their games, and ESPN was having me do their women's college games and some men's games and so forth. And so, I mean, things kind of fell into place. And I really think, too, in 1992, which was the dream team for the men. 1988, they came, as you well know, in 1988 for the men, they won the bronze.
Yes.
And so
I was assistant coach on that.
I know you were. Yeah. So, and that changed USA basketball.
That was
so
it.
Then the dream team came about. Well, on the women's side, we were the dominant country now. But in 1992, we won the bronze, which we had a game against the Soviet Union. And that changed for the women. So in 1996, 1995, 96, they took a group of women, and for a year. And Tara Vanderveer was the coach of that. For a year, they just played games. They were 60-0. That was our Olympic team. So was it the dream team? Were they pros? They did get a stipend, but they still weren't considered what the NBA was. So David Stern, the NBA, Val Ackerman, obviously there was conversation about starting a new league. The ABL had just started. And I would like to give credit to the WBL, even though it folded. I think subsequently all those leagues helped make what the WNBA is today, because of the successes and failures. And so in 1997, the WNBA comes into existence, and I was broadcasting for NBC, and in 2000 was their very first, if you want to call it the dream team. And for now, women's professional basketball, I don't see any other country touching us. I mean, we could take 3 teams and win gold, silver, bronze. The men, it's gotten a little bit different. It's a little bit more competitive now. China was a tough win. So London would be interesting.
And Spain, even though we won the gold medal, people forget that that game went right down to the final buzzer before it was decided.
And even in 2004,
we
came in. We got the bronze in that.
And
or the silver. Argentina won that. Yeah, we got the bronze.
Yes.
Yeah.
And who were 2 or 3 of your favorite broadcast partners during your broadcast career?
What a good question. You know, I've worked with so many people, George. I really have. You and I haven't worked together.
No, unfortunately.
I know. We'd have a good time. Mike Breen. I think Mike Breen is just really understands the game, and he's been doing it so long, and he's so easy to work with. And Terry Gannon, I think, does a great job. And I like Barry Tompkins. Yeah. Barry Tompkins, you just feel like you're in the room.
Yeah, it's like sitting in a bar having a conversation.
Exactly. And
you worked with...
I worked with Robin Roberts.
Yeah, and you had Chick Hearn you worked with, and Jackson. Who are those guys? Did you learn the most from?
Yeah, Chick Hearn, his preparation. You know, and he was in his 80s when we worked the WNBA games with the LA Sparks. His preparation was unbelievable. He got there 3 hours before the game and had his boards. And he struggled a little bit with the women because he'd been doing the Lakers for so long. I think one of the best compliments I had was, "Stu, we'll be right back." So he called me Stu Lance.
Yes.
And but he was so ingrained in the partners that he worked with. But I just thought his preparation, no matter how old you are and so forth. Dick Enberg said, do as much homework as you can on a player, and if you don't use 50% of it, you've done a great job. You know, the game will call itself. And I always remembered that. And certainly watching Don and his mannerism and his easiness with players in doing interviews. And interviews are not always easy. And you have to develop relationships with the coaches and the players or trainers or whoever you're talking to, and hopefully that they have a respect for you. I do feel, though, that, and I've said this for a long time, and Don said it, but I also said it, you're only as good as yesterday's paper. So I know that there are a lot of people in the business that don't know who I am, and so when I'm talking to a college kid or even a pro kid, they may not know who I am, but I hope that they have enough respect for me to understand that I want to do the best for them. To me, it's always about the game and the player. It's not about what I did.
And in 1979, you met Don Drysdale, and he became the love of your life, and you guys subsequently married. How did the relationship get started, and what was it about Don that attracted you to him?
He and Bob Uecker were the announcers for ABC, and I had gone down to the Bahamas to compete. My mom had come down. I had brought her down. I hadn't seen her in a while because I was in New Jersey playing, and my brother Mark and his wife Franny happened to be in Florida, so they came over for the competition too. And you know, for me, again, it's always about family. You know, the competitors were really good athletes. Again, I thought I was a good athlete, but I was not that time. And but I really didn't know who Don was. The Don that I had known on TV was Don Meredith, so the football player. So I wasn't sure who Don was. But even as a kid, we knew who Drysdale and Koufax were in Southern California. But I was kind of a Giants fan because my brothers were Giants fans, and we collected the cars and put them on our spokes on the bikes and everything, and back in the '60s. But I mean, he was a great-looking guy, and but I mean, there was nothing going on while I was competing. I mean, I didn't even understand the whole situation, and but he took me out to dinner literally after the thing was over, and he must have known. What would you do if I asked you to marry me?
Is that what he asked you?
Yes, yes. I mean, and I didn't even really know who he was, and so obviously there was something, but I didn't know because I was pretty immature in a lot of. I mean, I'd gone on a few dates in high school and a couple in college, but nothing where I was very involved with anybody. Yeah. And but you know, he was attractive. He was, you know, a nice guy. Spoke well. People seemed at ease around him, and they all seemed to know him. And maybe because I didn't know who he was, you know, might have been an attraction. But you know, it was a difficult situation for me because I was still playing, and I knew that he was married, and I wasn't going to get involved and so forth. And but you know, it was started off honestly as a fresh friendship where he would call and we would just talk about sports, and it was nice to talk to a man that respected what I had done and respected my opinion about sports, and whether it be basketball or baseball or whatever we were talking about. And we'd have conversations, we'd have long conversations, and certainly it grew to more, and he was in a relationship that was, you know, he had fallen out of love, and it was not good, and they ended up divorcing, and you know, we didn't get married for a while. I mean, he kept asking me, and then he, you know, knew that we needed time to just, you know, be who we were too.
Let the waters settle.
Yeah, yeah, for both of us, and but you know, it was hard not to, you know, at the end we got married in 1986, and you know, it was great.
So you get married in '86. You have 3 children, 2 boys and a girl, and the most unfortunate circumstance occurs, and I guess it was in '93, Don dies of a heart attack, and now here you are, a single mom trying to raise 3 children. How difficult and what changes did you have to make in your life at that point, Ann?
Well,
I know it's hard for you to talk about. I can see your eyes are watering up a little bit.
Actually, you know, '83, which was right before the '84 Olympics, I lost my sister Kelly in a car accident. She was playing basketball at Pepperdine, playing for my sister Patty. And that was the first time we had encountered that kind of, you know, tragedy. And life with Don was great. It was great. We had a scare though in '89 or '90. It was after our son Darren was born, and he had angioplasty. He was working for the Dodgers now as a broadcaster. When I met Don, he was working for the Angels and ABC, and then he worked for the White Sox, Jerry Reinsdorf, and Eddie Einhorn, and he worked there for 6 years. So our oldest son, DJ, who was born on Don's birthday, so it's hard not to have a Don Jr.
Yes.
He was born on Don's birthday in Chicago. And then Darren, when I was pregnant with him, Don had angioplasty, so it was a scare. And there was heart problems on his side of the family. But we thought nothing of it because he was taking care of it and getting his physicals and so forth. And then our daughter Drew was born in March of '93, and then also it was almost right after that I was informed that I was being inducted into the Basketball Hall of Fame. Donnie had been inducted in '84 for the Baseball Hall of Fame, and you know, it was a great time. I mean, the boys were 5 and 3, and our daughter was about 3 months old when Don passed away, and he was on the road in Montreal. You know, I still can't believe it. It's hard to believe then.
So in 2006, you take another quantum leap in your life and in your career, and you're now selected to become the general manager of the Phoenix Mercury in the WNBA. You helped lead them to 2 WNBA championships, and that when you in the early stages of being the GM of the Mercury, and what were some of the challenges that you had? Because now you're in a position where you've got people reporting to you. You've got to build strategic plans. It's a little different world than you had been accustomed to before.
Well, the broadcasting honestly made it easy, and I think being on the women's side and the accomplishments from day one that the WNBA started, a lot of people had asked me to be a GM or to be a coach. The broadcasting afforded me the opportunity and the freedom to be at home with my children a little bit more. There's no question that Don's family and my family were very supportive in helping me raise the children. I was gone a lot with broadcasting, but I would have been gone more if I had taken a job as a coach or a GM. In 2007, when I took the job with the Mercury, and I had been asked again every year to take another position in the WNBA, and I just thought I needed to spend more time with the kids. But in 2006, my oldest son was out of the house. The other two were in high school, and my daughter was just going to start high school. I have a sister that lives in Phoenix, and I weighed all the options. I went to the kids and I said, I'm not going to do this. What do you guys think? The timing just seemed right. Robert Sarver gave me the opportunity. He had called me the year before, and Phoenix always was a team that was always kind of asking me to jump on board. I think a lot of it had to do with Rick Welts too, and who was there at the time. But a lot of people were involved, and I'm sure the conversations. But Robert Sarver and I met, and we laid out a game plan. And certainly, I had never been a GM, but I think because of what I've been able to accomplish in the game, and I would like to think that I'm respected to a certain extent. You're absolutely right. When you get in there, there's things that you don't know, and you have to organize, and you have good people around you.
Yes.
And you can't accomplish things without good people around you. And it's amazing what can be accomplished when no one cares who gets the credit. And certainly, Paul West had already been there a year with Corey Gaines, and when you've got a player like Diana Taurasi and Penny Taylor, as you well know, you can't win without players. And certainly the Phoenix Mercury, I think the timing was right, and the league has gotten tougher and tougher, but it worked. It worked that year. It wasn't easy, and but I'd like to think that I helped make some good choices, and I'd like to think that my presence helps to a certain extent, being in the organization, and and it's tough. And as you well know, when you win, it's tough to repeat. So many you have to play at a high level every game, and it's tough to do emotionally and physically for a lot of players. Turned around and won it in 2009, and Corey Gaines has become our coach, and we've been in the championship, Western Conference Championship, the last couple of years, and we're on the verge. And my attitude is I go into something believing I'm going to win. I do not believe I'm going to lose. Even when we lost to the Soviet Union by 30, I never thought we were going to lose, and that's my attitude with the Phoenix Mercury, and even with the Suns. I mean, when you got a player like Steve Nash too, I mean, you think you're going to win every game, that somebody can dictate the game like he does. But Diana Taurasi is one of the greatest players to play the game, and she sacrifices for her teammates, and it's fun to watch that. It's fun to watch the the competitiveness of the players that we have. DeWanna Bonner is an unbelievable talent, and she has such enthusiasm when she plays, and you really enjoy watching them give their all, and and hopefully we'll be in it for 2012.
We've talked a lot about your career. Let's shift away and maybe just quickly focus on the people, places, and things that have played an integral role in your life. And take us back at growing up as a young person, and then on through high school and college. What were 2 or 3 of the most important life lessons you learned from your mom and dad?
Well, for me, I went to like 6, 7 different elementary schools, so I really had a tough time adjusting. And I would say stability. Stability, they were always there. I mean, my mom was always in the house, whether we came home from school and had our lunches or breakfast made, and she was there with dinner, and you knew that she was going to be there the whole time. But the work ethic. My dad, his work, he loved his job, he was good at his job. People that worked for him, always, we'd see him. Even today, I'll see somebody and say, "Oh, I worked at Sears for your father." They liked working for him, and he was fair, and he was a good guy. And, I would just say the work ethic is the one key word that keeps coming out.
Outside of your immediate family, and who were some of your role models growing up as a young lady?
Well, certainly for me, Babe Diedrichson, reading the book on her, and Billie Jean King and Wilma Rudolph. Wilma Rudolph, they said that she'd never run, let alone walk.
Yes.
And because she had polio, and you know, and then to become one of her friends, meeting her through the Women's Sports Foundation and so forth, and you know, and I loved Wilma. And we played in a tennis tournament together. As a matter of fact, there was a tennis tournament out in Vegas, and there's about a handful of women athletes that would play. Diana Nyad, Susie Chafee, myself, Wilma, and then guys, we usually the basketball and football players, whether it be Joe Washington or Julius Erving and Rick Barry and Calvin Murphy. And so you really got to know these other athletes, and so Wilma became a very, very dear friend. And Julius became like a brother to me. And then you meet somebody like John Havlicek and Bill Russell, who were idols of mine growing up. And then to be able to work on a broadcast for TNT with Rick Barry and Bill Russell, and Bill's become a dear friend. We went into the FIBA Hall of Fame together along with Dean Smith, and you know, you just meet these people, different people. But in junior high, Miss Wilson, Sheila Wilson, was huge in convincing me to play tennis, and she had played tennis in college, but that, you know, so early in the early '60s, and you think, oh yeah, right, and yet for her to have that foresight to encourage me to play tennis and to focus on that. Ginny Donald Clark, who was a high school coach, and you know, your teachers through high school and elementary school that touch you, and even in college. And I talked about Art Friedman, and there was Paul Tanner, who taught a class that everybody loved, and but certainly the coaches that I've had, whether it be Billy Moore or my sister Patty, you know, Ducky Drake to be influenced on me, and Gary Cunningham, and Jim Bush, and certainly Papa, Coach Wooden. You know, to have those people in your life, you're just like, how blessed am I to be able to talk and not just learn about the game, but to learn about life. And you know, Papa would be 101 this year, I think, and you know, we lost him in 2010. And but you know, think about him every day. Every day he's in my thoughts, and what he helped me understand to be a better person and live each day as your masterpiece.
Yeah, and once again, just so our viewers understand, Papa is a great legendary UCLA coach, John Wooden, and I don't know a person who ever was in his presence that he didn't touch them and make them a better person, a better coach, a better athlete. One of the great thrills of my coaching career was to be able to say that I had the opportunity to coach against him. We didn't win, but it was still a thrill to be able to do that. And Time Magazine voted you one of the 5 best women athletes in the history of sports. What do you view as your greatest contribution to sports?
Well, hopefully giving back to others. I mean, honestly, the sports is great, but as you well know, it's just a small part of our lives and what we do afterwards, and how we use it to an advantage to help others, and certainly to help young girls and young boys to believe in themselves and to believe in their dreams, and you know, certainly reality and what things are like in life. And you know, I feel so fortunate with the people I've met and the people we talked to. You know, Pete Newell was huge, and getting involved with women's basketball and the tall women's camp and so forth, and you know, and then meet, you know, so many other coaches, and you're all teachers. You may teach the game, but you're teaching life. And you know, I haven't been a coach per se. I mean, I've done camps and I've coached at the camps and helped my sister at Pepperdine. And have I got, you know, been paid as a coach like you guys have? No, but I think in giving back to others and making them understand that they can accomplish anything they want, and if they can do it through sports, to use that to their advantage. Because, you know, we see that commercial, you know, most of us are pros, but we'll be pros in something else besides the sport that they do. And but for me, sports was always about having fun. It was always something that I wanted to do. It was never a means to an end to get a scholarship, to make money. I'm very fortunate to be able to be in a business that is involved with sports, and I do have a salary, but that's not why I do it. I do it to help others.